everybody, welcome to the podcast. I'm Robert Scrobe. Today we have Pauline Thomas. She is the founder and director of The Laptop. She's all about co-working spaces and has a very, very rich background in visual design and the arts. She also is someone I found out that has been very well versed in design sprints for quite a long time. In fact, she was trained even before the sprint book came out. So that was an interesting topic, as well as some things that we discussed regarding the importance of listening to developers, the book that she's working on for design sprints, and a lot of other related topics. So I really enjoyed it. She was a good sport and didn't convert into French, even though I desperately wanted her to speak some. But no matter, it was a great conversation. Hope you enjoyed too, and we'll see you soon. Bonjour, Pauline. Thanks for coming on the podcast. See, you are the founder and director of The Laptop. You've been at it for about 7 years, and you're also a design sprint trainer all the way back since 2014, and you're practicing out in Paris, France. It looks like Laptop is it's a co-working space that's open to all creators of pictures, texts, sounds, and interactive objects. So basically, it's a way for people to develop their creativity and cultivate their network. And I know that in speaking to you earlier, this is something that you're very interested in. You want to transform the way people work. Could you kind of get into a bit about how you got into co-working spaces and why that appeals to you so much?
Yeah. I set up the laptop almost 8 years ago. So I was freelancer at the moment, at the time, and I used to work for Adobe. So I was traveling a lot between San Francisco and Paris. And also as an artist, I had exhibitions and shows all over the place. So I thought maybe as a freelancer, you don't have home, like a home for working, so like it's you are alone, and it's very bad if you need to evolve and to become a better designer. If you want to meet people, it's very bad for the course of your activity. So that's why I thought it was necessary to create a home for freelancers and for designers, because designers really need a place to work together, not only desks, but some place where they can be active and have walls to write, to draw, and to meet. So that's why I thought about creating spaces for freelancers, designers, and authors who need to be inspired and meet new people every time. Voilà.
How have you seen co-working spaces change over the years since you've been doing this for such a long time, since you've been with Adobe? What kind of changes have occurred?
So now co-working, maybe in France, I think there is no meaning anymore, because we work and very big corporations like that. They really took the market, and so they just rent desks, and it's really not the point of my concept and my vision of co-working. I know there are still lots of independence in France, in Paris, in Berlin, in New York, etc. But it's quite difficult because the rents are very high now in those cities. So we really need to have another activity to invest on the social part of the co-working, because it's really not very interesting economically. So now I really believe, I still believe in co-working, as now people in France, maybe, I don't know, in other cities, but they are major to change the way they work. And what I see is that I added the training part 5 years ago to the co-working part of my activity. and I have a lot of demand, and people are really happy to change the way they work and really see the work differently, and it's less something they have to do, but something they want or desire to do. And so I think the design sprints methodologies are really accurate in this context. So that's why I really develop design methods, and I really I'm part of the community, the people in France who really wants to change the way we work with less hierarchy, more pleasure, more play, and more vision, I would say.
Do you see a natural relationship between practitioners that work in the design sprint process and co-working spaces?
So that's a good point. I thought that there will be a more link and more activity, more partnerships, but at that time, I feel that at Laptop we are the only one who really focus on design and design sprint in France. I don't know in the other cities, so it's very strange, but I know it's a good point for us.
Looking out a couple of years, 1 or 2 years with co-working, what kind of vision do you have for it? Where would you like to see it go?
So me, I really value the work value, the work value. Value for me, it's a way how we. I really want to develop the way people work together and develop the relationship, like the human side more than the money side or the project or the technical side. I really wanted to emphasize relationships between people and develop the roots, the why, le pourquoi in French, the why we are doing all this. Why are we are waking up every day? Like I want really to give to enable people a vision of their life, like what are you doing this today, and what will you do in 1 year, in 2 years. So it's really how for me I really wanted to enable people to find themselves a reason to do what they do. So in themselves, their resources, to find the resources to be creative and really to give a sense and a meaning to their life. It's basically that. It's to give meaning. And from that, I know that when you give a coherence somewhere, you give the contour, you draw the contour of a project, of a project. You bring impact to organizations, to projects you work on. So it's really, for me, it's the definition of design. It's really how you give impact by defining the why. Voilà. So it's really that, and so that's why the training part of the activity is really through the UX, through the user research, through the information architecture. All the activities of the sprints and the facilitation is really to help people to understand what they are doing and why they are doing.
So to summarize, you see co-working spaces as a place where people can find purpose and meaning in their work.
Yes.
And really be able to develop themselves and socialize with other people that they know.
Yes, and also, of course, there are lots of connecting activities, like the events, opportunities. There are lots of mission opportunities that are given in Slack. People share lots of micro learnings. It's like If I need to know something very quickly, you can share very quickly, like in a company. Also, you get inspiration from the newcomers. It's always new. The community refreshing itself constantly, but there are also people who are here every day, etc. So it's very refreshing, inspiring, and voilà. So jobs, meaning, inspiring place, inspiring people, and methods. So that's why the mojo, the baseline of the laptop is space, people, methods. It's really the pillars of the laptop.
What was really interesting for me is to learn that you were certified as a Sprint expert literally 5 years ago, and when you were with Adobe. And this was even before the Sprint book by Jake Knapp was even out. And at the time, you were already kind of iterating on the format, looking at it from the lens of service design and UX. Can you get into it a bit around how that entire era of your career with getting started with design sprints and what that was like?
It's really when I started to work abroad. So I started to work in London with Orange and O2. It's like telecom companies. So I started to learn service design methodologies, and I met some methods that really transform my vision of design. So it's like the service blueprint. So for me, it was like the grail, the grail of design. So it's really my revelation, because with the service blueprint, we could align together, work together, visualize together, and envision the whole experience from A to Z. I think you know the method, but for me it was so transformative for our clients that it was even maybe very easy to make to create the alignment. So I really like this method. Then what I really discovered in UK, it was very new for me. It was the collaboration, because in France it's really not rooted in the in the culture, and so it's like, wow, people are working together. It was crazy. So voilà. So I bring all the stuff and so many things, and then I worked for Adobe in the US and in agile team, and it was awful for designers because we were very few and lots of developers all around the world. So it was very difficult to create leadership, to create design leadership. So because I love methods, I started to think what could be the process for me to be heard by developers. Because also I've got a soft-spoken voice, so it was very difficult to speak to those guys over the phone and to say, "Hey, listen to the users. No, I don't want to do this feature because there is no point." It was very difficult to find a way to be heard. Also, the culture difference, because we were Canadians, so French, Romanian, Indian, and Americans, and we don't speak the same language. Like we don't understand really each other. We don't have the same culture, so it's we don't have the same definition of done. There are so many differences in different things, so it was very difficult for me. So I proposed to my program manager something to crack this problem, and so I've met them in Ottawa, and I proposed the Sprint Zero methodology, where there were different moments where we create we speak to the marketing, but the developer as well, because we were too many at the table, but not at the same time. So that was part of the problem. So we need to bring everyone to the first day and to get the insights from the users afterwards, and then start live prototyping with all the team, and have a different focus and review with developers, etc. But I thought there were two. I knew that my team, my boss, wouldn't like us to work together for 1 week, or it was. I knew it was very complicated. So voilà, it was. They were okay with that, but it was very difficult to apply. And then so Google invited me to be part of the Google Expert program, and so I followed the program in Mountain View, and so I've been trained by them, and I thought, okay, that's great. The methods are very cool. I wouldn't do exactly like that, but it's very cool. But I had the same problem. It was, I knew it will be very difficult to bring all the people for 1 week together, like from Canada, from Romania, from France. So I think it was not really resolving my issue, but I was still I was starting really a conversation with myself. Say, okay, there are very good points with Google, and it's Google. So if Google does method like that, it's a very strong selling point. So I use the I use the Google selling point, and it really worked. So that's cool. And then I started to develop lots of different formats of sprints. So 1 day, what is 1 day? What is 2 days? What is 3 days? What is 4 days? What is 5 days? And how you create the repetition, the recurring reason. And so that's why I really develop at the moment to solve the problem of designers and developers all over the world. So, and that's why when I heard that you create a remote sprint, I said, oh, maybe Robert will help me on that. And I would like to help you on that as well, because for me it's a very, very big pain point the big organizations have, and still the design sprint, as Jake Knapp does, it's not solving this problem. You see, so it will be maybe another discussion, but I want to have this discussion.
How did the developers start adopting some of the things that you were talking about?
What I added for developers as well is a 1 day prioritization. 1 day, the last day for me in the sprint. So it's really to bring back the PO and developers, and we really create the roadmap. We prepare the user stories that we prioritize, because that's why I did with Adobe, and it really worked. Is that sometimes when we focus in a long period as 5 days, we really need to close this period by a prioritization. And as we are all together, it's time to do that now, even if it's boring when you do it independently, like in agile teams over the phone. It's the worst I have never met in companies. the sprint planning, it's really boring. But when we do it together, we write together at the end of sprint, is very interesting. It's creative. We keep the focus, and this focus will is maintained for more than one sprint. Agile sprint. This focus is well, it takes maybe months, because when we meet physically and we do that kind of activity, it creates deeper links between people, and that's why I believe a lot in a design sprint, gathering developers and business, marketing, etc. Because finally we are together. So it's like we are synced for a longer time than the daily stand up. It's very mechanical for me. The Scrum methodologies is too mechanical, and it's not helping the human side. Voilà, to bring more meaning, more connection, all that. I don't know if I am clear.
Absolutely. In fact, I think it's admirable that you haven't switched into French since we've been talking. It's just been straight English the entire time, and I keep waiting for you to drop that French phrase. And you just go, "Je suis," blah, 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 and I'll be like, "All right,
no,
now."
I want a conversation with you. That's why I speak in English. If you don't speak French,
again, at some point you want to go off and just go full French mode, I am totally fine with it. So I'm curious to know if you've seen or read about the 6-week development cycle. I think it was Jason Fried came out with a web book called Shape Up, which is a summary of Basecamp's internal development process that's much more human. Have you heard of it? Have you read about it at all?
I've read a few interviews of Jason Fried speaking about that, but I really want to read it more carefully. Yeah, because it's on my Evernote scrapping book. I've got lots of articles about it. Yeah, it's very interesting. Right.
I'm interested in seeing if within the 6-week cycle that they describe, and I know that other companies have used it historically, like Buffer, being able to take that 6-week cycle and think, okay, how does service design, growth design, design sprints, how could it potentially work within that model of shaping the work, getting approval, empowering the developers, and by proxy the designers to do the work? That's what I would be curious to explore.
The idea is really for me, it's really not that design belongs to everybody, and good ideas belongs to everybody. That's why I really hate having the developers at the end of the process and the business at the beginning. There is no point. So that's why for me, for example, one difference with Jake Knapp or Google Design Sprint is that I invite users the first day. So we all interview one person. So we can interview 5 to 10 or even 20 people. So I recruit lots of users. And then so we hear the voice of the user. So for the customer, not the customer, for the client, for the brand, for the company, Adobe, for example, finally the business and the developers, the engineers, everybody can interview people. So they are immediately connected to the problem and their customer problem.
Do you find that, do you interview people individually, or do you interview them in pairs of 2 and 3? Instead of just focusing questions on one individual, perhaps 2 people that know each other, and it's asking them a question and they can play off of one another. Like if they're best friends, if they both use the same app or they have a relationship, so that they can give context to their answers, or they can help each other kind of refine their point of view. Have you done it like that?
No, not during a sprint, but during projects. In London we work like that sometimes. Yeah, it was. That's a good point. In the sprint, my assumption is that we don't have time, but we are plenty of brains. So we can collect lots of insights. So we have 1 hour, and we interview one person, and people are in pair to interview one person during 1 hour in parallel. So it's like the factory, the interview factory. It's very funny.
Have you ever invited your customers or your users out to lunch? So you use a setting where you invite them to like a pizzeria or another restaurant in town that's local, and instead of meeting at the office or the the workshop site or the co-working space to talk about their experiences with the product. You talk with them over a lunch that you pay for. That's kind of the compensation, but you can have more prolonged discussions over 90 minutes around different things related to it.
That's true. Yeah. The same, I do it for projects, but when I don't have the money for that, for user research, I invite them for lunch. But during sprints, never, because it's so time boxed. So it's like at 2 people arrive, and at 3 they all leave, and we start to synthesize and empathy map and experience map. So it's like no time for this. No time for pleasure. No, I'm kidding. But well, it's the time box always.
So one thing you are making time for is a book. You're writing a book about design sprints.
Yes. Well,
very curious about that. So please, if you can tell me anything about that, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. So my idea was to really to do a complement of the sprint book, because what I discovered is that because we train so many people in France, is that every people tell me, yeah, but for me it will be impossible to do a 5-day sprint or 4-day sprint. It's very difficult. And also the questions, people were not confident to start their first design sprint because they understood that the preparation point and the planning is quite tough. You have to frame the problem. It's okay for us because we are senior designer, but when you start, it's not easy to prep to do the preps. So I thought maybe in the design sprint, and also the third problem, is the after a sprint. So bravo, congrats, you succeed to do a design sprint, and after what do you do? Because as we see it built in agile Scrum sprints, you have to continue. So how do you do that? So the title of my 3 main topics, it's the sprint in. So it's before the sprint, is how you plan, how you frame problem, how you invite people, what are all the the nuggets that you give to your participants so they really come and they are motivated. There's all that topics links to the logistics as well and stuff like that, but it's really how you prepare and how you also create the right format for your problem, because it's impossible to do 5 days the first time. It's impossible. Or maybe your client is very rich or very confident or very major, but it never happens. Because my thought is that Jake Knapp and Google, they can easily do that because the startups don't pay for that. It's Google Ventures. It's an investment about Google, from Google, sorry. So no startups will pay for a 5 days design sprint. Maybe in US, but in France you'll never see that. So voilà, it starts with not a lie, but it's a specific, very specific context. You see. Mm-hmm. So voilà. So in our context, the real context is corporates that are not very major, and or very small companies that don't have so much money, even money to start, and because they need to be convinced, they need to understand, they need to have the process, the right process, work process to sorry. Maybe I will speak in French. can't finish my sentence in English.
No, I was going to say, do you think it also deals with understanding the people that you're considering on your sprint team and their strengths and what they bring to the table also factors into whether or not you're going to do even a 4-day sprint or a variation of it? I mean, I would assume that you really need to understand the team that you're going to be working with.
Well, exactly. So it's really the part of the sprint in. So it's really the beginning of the book. And then you have the sprint on. So it's the facilitation techniques that could be specific sometimes to design sprint, because it's not just one ideation workshop. It's fucking 5 days, so it's super tiring. So you really have to get your group and to bring your group up to 5 days, and then you have the methods. So all the methods that we could use from the day 1 to day 5. So there will be a collection of methods. The one I developed, of course, but the one that I used from Strategizer or Jake Knapp or Google or Gamestorming or Lean Startup. So it's like a collection of methods, so you can adapt and understand why this method is more interesting in this context. If you have a small group, that's better to do this, and for this purpose you can do this. So it's like a pick and choose, Voila.
When is the book coming out?
Next year, because I have to write it. I'm just at the beginning.
Well, I would just assumed it was nearly done. It's like, yes, Robert, it's coming out in 2 months.
No, but it's easy. It's not easy, but it's okay for me because I train so many people that all the content is there, but I need to write now. So I started, but I think I will be finished with this project at the end of the year. So it will be launched in maybe for the next summer or spring. Voila. And the last method, the last part is the sprint out. No, sprinting on, out, and out is how do you build in the Scrum process, and how do you iterate? Let's read the iteration. And so it's part of there is a part in the sprinting with how to sell design sprint, and so you need to know how you iterate with this company and how you can transform the culture of the company. So it's more a book about fostering a design culture in a company, because a sprint is for me more a tool. And maybe sometimes, like for me, like UX, at some point nobody will speak about UX or nobody will speak about sprint, because it will be part of the way people work. You see, it will be obvious. You see, it's just obvious. So I'm working on making it obvious.
So in 2 years' time, where do you see the design sprint process? Do you think it will continue to evolve and continue to be acclimated and absorbed into design, the way people do their work? Where do you see this going? Yeah,
probably as Agile is very, very strong, the Agile culture, probably in the US as well. I think Agile will suck it up, and it will not be a design thing anymore. It will be part of the process, because for me it's really the design. We shouldn't speak about design in a way, because it's obvious. It's really part the way we have to talk to customers, and all companies now understand that it's really not rooted, but they know that they can't do good products if they don't speak to their customers.
Yeah.
And I think now it's okay. There are so many proofs So maybe I think it will be a different way to do agile sprints. Voilà, integrated. We will be integrated. So totally, we will be eaten up. I think the business now talking about design. They like talking about tech. So maybe we will keep those two things like business, tech, and design. It will be okay, but we have to talk to each other. It's really important. So for me, there will be a new.
Yeah, I agree.
What? So I think there will be the facilitator, the sprint master role will be much more important, and the managers will do that job, and more freelancers will do that job. So it will be like more human to create relationship and to create discussions. You see, discussions, interactions, or relationships between people all over the company.
Pauline, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I very much appreciate it, and thank you for speaking in English the entire time, though you didn't need to. It was good to talk to you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Dallas Design Sprints podcast. If you have a question, comment, or complaint, or just a random thought, email me at robert@dallasdesignsprints.com. You can also find me on Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and a few other ones that I'm not remembering right now. Hope you're doing well, and we'll see you next time.